I've been married to my wife Lisa for quite some time. I've wanted a baby for a while, and I thought I convinced her, but guys, turns out she was actually taking birth control pills so she could not get pregnant. But I found them in the garbage while I was looking for something that I lost, and I decided to confront her. Well, turns out the reason she was using them is because this whole time she's been cheating on me, and she didn't want to get pregnant by the guy she was cheating with. Well, guess what? That sounds really horrible and everything, but guess what? My mom, she was in on it too. And it gets so deep, guys, so I'm going to cut both of them off. But before I do, I'm going to tell them this. I've been married to my wife Lisa for 5 years. We met right after I graduated from college. She worked at a cafe I frequented on my way to work. I was immediately smitten, but did not muster up the strength to ask her out until a few months later. We immediately hit it off, and a year later I proposed. We had a small destination wedding down in Florida, with a few family and close friends, and since then things have been awesome. My wife had dreams of opening up her own cafe, and we were both saving money towards that goal. Because of this, we decided to hold off on having children until things were a bit more stable. About 2 years in, we'd saved up enough to buy a fixer-upper place that had been abandoned by its previous owner. You see, it needed a lot of love, but it was ours. It took about a year to fix it up, then another year of slowly buying equipment and furniture before it could finally open. It took a few minutes for it to pick up because even though we were in a decent location, the entrance was kind of inconvenient area and there was no parking. But after word got around, we were in fact inundated. There's a train station nearby, so a lot of people were stopping in for their morning coffee before work. Soon, we had to hire extra staff just to keep up, and my wife ran the business mostly since I worked in IT, and we'd need something to fall back on if the cafe was not successful. I always checked up on her in the afternoons, though, as she'd still be in the shop, up to 2 hours after it closed, cleaning, doing accounting stuff, and sometimes I'd help her out and we'd go home together. Things were going great, until about a year and a half ago. I figured with the cafe now establishing a generating profit, Lisa and I could start working on a family. At first, she was a little skeptical, not because she did not want kids, she just was not sure if she was ready to put someone else in charge of the cafe. I understood and told her she did not have to decide right away. She could have a few weeks to mull it over, think about who she could trust enough to run the cafe while she took maternity leave. Well, a month went by, and she never brought it up again, so I decided to mention it on a drive home from the cafe, and she got really defensive and said I was not considering her feelings. That I knew opening the cafe was her dream, and I wanted to rip it away by keeping her barefoot and pregnant. That wasn't the case at all. I told her I knew how much the cafe meant to her, and that I was not trying to take it away from her at all. I was looking for a compromise, not a fight. I said I'd go along with whatever plan she came up with, even if it meant I had to take leave on vacation time, so she could have time to be at the cafe. This is one thing I've noticed in hindsight. I was always willing to compromise, but Lisa was never willing to compromise. I dropped everything to help her pursue her dreams, and even picked up extra shifts and overtime so I could pump money into her dreams. There were times when I really wanted something but decided against it because I was saving money for her. But she did not want to compromise at all. At the time, I figured she worried, the pregnancy would be debilitating, that she'd have to give up about going to the cafe altogether. So, I was trying to be understanding. At this point, I'd gotten at least 2 promotions and was making decent money, so I could afford a good doctor. I asked her if she wanted to go check out to make sure she was fit enough, and she declined. I decided to shelve the conversation again, but I would be lying if I said I was not annoyed. A week later at dinner, she told me she'd be willing to try, and I was so ecstatic. We started trying right away. Well, after 4 months, it looked like we weren't getting anywhere, and it really took the wind right out of my sails. I decided to go to the doctor to get myself checked out, sperm count, etc. My work gives me a few free checkups per year as part of the benefit package, so it was free. The doctor said everything was fine on my end, which meant my wife could have been having fertility issues. I didn't know how to bring this up to her, and I knew she would see it as an attack, and I simply did not want to make it seem like it was her fault. So, while we were laying in bed at night, I tried taking the route of blaming myself. I volunteered to go to the doctor even though I already had. She said she was sure nothing was wrong and that for some people it took a while. I decided to take her word for it, and I also did some research, and it said it could take some, years. So I decided to be patient about it, and there was still doubt lingering in the back of my mind, but I ignored it and just blamed it on the nerves. For about a month, things were fine until one day, I found something that confirmed all my doubts. My wife usually leaves the house before me since the cafe opens at 6, and I get ready and leave early enough to stop by the cafe and see her before work. I'm in the mirror, shaving and brushing my teeth, and while I do this, I take my ring off because I had a scare where I almost lost it down the drain while washing my hands once. When I go to put it back on, I don't see it in the spot where I left it, and I immediately panic. I'd been throwing a bunch of stuff in the trash, so I thought maybe I absent-minded threw it in there. I dumped the whole thing out on the ground, and in the bottom I found an empty card of birth control pills. You see, my whole body went absolutely cold. I take this card out into the bedroom, and my ring was there, on the bedside table, but for the first time I did not feel like putting it back on. I took the empty card away and my work bag and finished getting ready. The drive to the cafe was absolutely miserable. My mind, it just kept racing with all the reasons she could have done this. Before we got married, we discussed children, and we both said we wanted a family. Even then, I still wanted to give Lisa the benefit of the doubt. When I got to the shop, I greeted her like usual and got a coffee and a muffin. I asked her if anyone had been over to the house recently, and she said no, and wondered why I asked. I said I found some of my notebooks out of place, but figured I'd probably just forget to put them up. I left shortly after that, got into the car and cried, and oh boy, I had not cried in years. That entire day at work was absolutely miserable. I didn't know what I should do. I looked up the name of the drug online, and it was a prescription birth control. Still, I was giving my wife the benefit of the doubt and thought maybe she was having some sort of other medical issues. I decided to leave work early to go see her at the cafe. Remember how I said there was no parking by the cafe? When I drive there, I'd have to park in a nearby office complex and take a 2-minute walk. Well, when I go by after work, I have to drive past the cafe to park. Well, while I was driving past, I noticed some guy in the shop with her. They were just talking. I assumed it was, a maintenance guy or maybe someone who comes to do deliveries. And then they kissed. I thought I was going to lose my lunch in the car or vomit. I was so darn disgusted. I kept driving and did not stop until I got home, and, well, now it all made sense. If she was having sex with some random dude, she could risk getting pregnant and the baby not being mine. The moment I got home, I started looking for a private investigator, and I needed to know who that guy was and how long they'd been seeing each other. I found some in the area who was ready to start working right away. I paid through a wire, gave him all the information he needed, and left. I needed time to clear my head, so I went for a long walk. By the time I got back, Lisa was home, and she asked why I did not come by the shop that afternoon. I told her I left work early because I wasn't feeling well. I considered confronting her right then and there, but I wanted the investigator to give me more ammunition because I was strongly considering divorce. So, I told the investigator he had a week to compile as much evidence as he could, and during that time I told my wife I'd have to work overtime because we were working on a big project at work. I didn't feel bad for lying to her, as what she was doing was much, much worse. A week passes, and I have the investigator drop off all his findings to me at work. After looking through it all, I immediately called my lawyer to discuss the next steps. I made copies of everything and dropped them off by his office on my way home. When Lisa got in, I was in the kitchen. I told her we need to talk. Yes, we need to talk. She already looked nervous and asked if it was about having kids again, and I just shook my head. Told her I no longer wanted to have kids with her at all. She seemed shocked by what I said and asked me what's going on. So I pulled the empty birth control card from my bag and I slapped it right there on the table. I told her where and how I found it. I told her not to even try to make up an excuse because she herself said no one had been over, and then I asked her outright if she was having an affair. Lisa started to cry and said I was attacking her and I did not fall for her tears. I knew she was going to try to get me back off by making me feel bad like she always did. I told her I saw her kissing a guy in the cafe and showed her the photos of the private investigator had taken. She accused me of spying on her and said marriages were supposed to be built on trust, and I'll admit I let my anger get the best of me and I slammed my fist on the table. And I told her she was not allowed to try to turn this around on me. I'd been faithful to her throughout our entire marriage, and she had no right to talk about trust with me. Well, Lisa started to cry and told me it was all just a mistake and that this guy Jason was an old friend of hers from high school who had been visiting his parents in town. He was going through a rough time and just needed a friend. She said it was never supposed to escalate, and I asked her how long they've been seeing each other. A few months. She'd been having sex with him for months. I could not even look at her anymore. I slept in the basement that night, and I found excuses to stay out of the house until my lawyer finally finished drafting up divorce papers. I was very clear about what I wanted, but I knew it was going to be a bitter divorce. So I sat her down and gave her the papers, and she seemed shocked for some reason. I don't know what she expected me to do. Grit my teeth and endure her infidelity? She sat there and read through my demands, and one of them being that we sell the cafe and split the proceedings. She said she did not want that, and I told her the only way she got to keep it was if she gave me every single penny I put into it up front. And I had put a whole lot of money into that shop. I'm talking about, I paid like 75% of the cost, including all the equipment and furniture. I knew I was being petty, but I don't care. I literally poured my heart and soul into making sure that she had her dream. And she used it to what? Cheat on me? I wanted my lick back. I made it known that I was not budging on this, and my terms were clear. I'd been sleeping in the basement since I confronted her for the first time, and I'd moved all my stuff down there and got a new lock for the door in case she thought of retaliating. It wasn't much, but at least I did not have to look her in the face anymore, that's the truth. I actually contacted one of the workers I was familiar with and asked him if he knew of my wife's infidelity. He said, well, he had his suspicions after seeing so much of Jason just waltzing into the store and how much attention and care my wife would give him compared to their other regulars. He didn't want to say anything because that would have been overstepping and our relationship was really none of his business. Well, I couldn't fault the kid, to be honest. He just wanted to keep his job. The next week, my lawyer gets a call from a lawyer who would supposedly be representing Lisa, and he got a copy of her terms. I could have everything else if she just gets to keep the shop. Well, I honestly was tempted to stop being petty and just let her have it, but I kept thinking about the birth control, about that kiss, and I decided that she deserved nothing. I told my lawyer to reject the terms and we'll see her in court. I was headed home from the office the next day when I get a call from my mother. She asked if I could drop by. She lives nearby, so I didn't have to go out of my way too much, and my mom lives alone, and has been since I got married. Father passed away from a heart attack when I was in college. Mom still gets his pension and the house is paid off, but it's still not enough to cover bills and groceries every month, so I do chip in when I can. My mom was a stay-at-home mother her whole life, so she never really had any jobs or savings. It was kind of rough until I graduated college and was able to get a job, but Mom worked some magic and made a lot of sacrifices to make sure I had everything I needed, and I owe her a lot. When I pulled up to her house, she was on the porch waiting, and I sat down with and asked her what she needed. She said she heard about the divorce and had not told her, so I guess Lisa must have called her. My mom said she was disappointed that I jumped to divorce as the very first solution. Well, I asked her if she was just as disappointed with Lisa's infidelity, and she told me, stop being so defensive. She wasn't trying to take sides and thought what Lisa did was absolutely despicable. But I should, just throw away my marriage over one little mistake? ? I lost it and absolutely started yelling. This was not one little mistake. It would be different if it was just a one-night stand. She had been actively and willingly cheating on me for absolute months. She knew how much I wanted to start a family, and she was deliberately taking birth control to make sure that I couldn't. I gave her everything, and she spit in my face. My mother shook her head at me and said, in her family they fight for their marriages. They just don't give up over one little obstacle. I could only roll my eyes, and a lot of people on my mom's side of the family were stuck in bitter, loveless, miserable marriages because they were way too traditional for their own darn good. They didn't believe in divorce, no matter how heinous one partner was to the other. As much as I love my dad, I would not be surprised if I found out he was cheating on my mom too, or even vice versa. Some of them are being abused, constantly cheated on, and some of the men have, quote, secret families, and they all paint themselves as squeaky, clean, God-fearing, church-going Christians. It's absolutely ridiculous. I didn't want to be like them. Mom was telling me to get help, go to couples therapy, or talk and work it out, and she said when she spoke to Lisa, she seemed remorseful about what she did. She didn't want divorce. I rolled my eyes at that. I'm saying the only thing Lisa cared about was that darn cafe. I told my mom I'd think about her just to get her off my back, but I had no intention of letting Lisa off the hook. I'd already told her if we went to court, I'd accept whatever the judge decided should happen when we go. But I wasn't going to cave to her demands, as I've done so many times before. This time, I'm looking out for me. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Oh boy, today's story is a whirlwind. I'll just say, a lot of the commenters from the original post are saying how I can't believe OP's mother is basically sticking up for the cheater. Let me know what you guys think's going to happen before we jump into these updates, so pause the video, scroll down, leave a comment, and come back later and see how you did. I have 3 updates to hop into. If you guys are new to the channel, the best way to support it is just by hitting that subscribe button. It helps out a lot, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 1. Well, I just had the absolute most unpleasant shock of my life. Last weekend, I got a call from my mom, saying she's having computer issues. It's a regular occurrence. She's not computer savvy and pretty much only knows how to use Facebook and email, and every few months I have to go by her place to clean a bunch of old files and stuff. She downloads all sorts of pictures from Facebook and forgets about them until the memory on the computer gets way too low and starts tripping it out. So, I go over there and start deleting all those silly pictures and stuff that's piled up over the last few months. Once I've freed up enough memory, I do a quick check to make sure everything's running fine. When I open the web browser, her email came up, and I see chains from her and Lisa. Now, I'm not one to snoop, and if those email chains were from 3 or 4 months ago, I would not mind, because that was before the divorce was even a thing. No, there was some from a recent, the day before. Now, tell me why my mom would have any reason to be talking so much to the woman who cheated on her son? I opened up the email chain and started scrolling. I went back to the time when Lisa said she started seeing Jason. Well, I was not prepared for what I saw. Lisa confided in my mom that she'd made a mistake and slept with an old friend. She was afraid I would find out and asked my mom what she should do. And you know what my mom said? It wasn't a big deal. That it was not uncommon for people in relationships to, quote, wonder. She admitted to cheating on Dad once or twice, but it was fine because he never found out. And even if he did, he would not have left her. She seemed confident that I would not leave Lisa because of how much I had invested in their marriage, and she told my soon-to-be ex-wife to keep the affair a secret and to never bring another man into our house. My blood was absolutely boiling. I could not believe my own mother would betray me like this, and I scrolled some more and found an email from when I served her the papers. She seemed distraught and was asking my mom for advice again because I was, quote, going to take the cafe from her. My mom promised to talk some sense into me. Her first mistake was assuming my father would never have left her, and I know my dad. And while he was a family man, he did not tolerate foolishness. If he had found out my mom was cheating, he would have gotten a unilateral divorce and pursued his dream of sailing through the Caribbean. Family was the thing that kept him grounded, but he would not let a bad marriage tie him down, and neither would I. I also found out that through those emails that Lisa was giving my mom money every single month. I assume it was money from the cafe since I checked our joint account every month and nothing went missing from there. So that was her motivation for what she was saying, I guess. Well, she chose money over me. I downloaded the email chain and sent it to my lawyer. I asked him if this was something that we could use, and he said it was a little last minute, but he'd see what he could do. Our divorce proceedings, are in 2 weeks, and I can't wait to be absolutely free of this nightmare. Update number 2. It's been a while, but I've been trying to get my life together. The divorce proceedings were absolutely rough, but the judge ruled in my favor. Our house and the cafe will be sold and split, halfway. My wife started crying in the courtroom, and the judge said that he had half a mind to give me the whole shop after actually everything I sacrificed, and it was really hard, reliving all of that, but I'm glad it's finally over. If Lisa really wants the shop, she could buy it once it goes onto the market. So, I doubt she'd be able to do that since she has found somewhere to live and get a new job too, and as soon as the ruling was handed down, I packed up all my stuff. I've leased an apartment for 6 months until I can find something small for myself. This house market is so terrible. Now that it's all over, the weight of everything I've lost is finally coming down on me. More than anything, I'd wanted to start a family after getting myself established, and I feel like my dreams of whatever happening have been absolutely crushed. I've decided to go to therapy and sort through these feelings and hopefully get to a place where the world doesn't seem so bleak and hopeless. As for Lisa, I don't know what's become of her. She was ordered by the judge to close the shop so I can, put it up for sale. I passed by there last week and the windows were dark, so she'd at least done what the judge asked. I thought maybe I'd feel bad if she lost the shop, but I feel nothing but contempt for her. When she started crying in the courtroom, I just shook my head. It's hard to feel pity for someone who hurt me so deeply, even just on a human level. My dad's side of the family has been an absolute huge help through all of this. They've been super supportive. Some of them even offered me room in their house until I would go and figure things out. I'd rather be on my own, though, just right now, but I told them that if they really wanted to help, they could look through Zillow and help me find a home that isn't going to cost me an absolute arm and a leg. Update number 3. I thought the drama surrounding my divorce would be over by now, but there's one thing I forgot. Though I did not expect it to cause this much backlash. Remember how my mom was encouraging Lisa in her foolishness? Well, about a month after the proceedings, I cut her off. I didn't say anything, I just did not send her the money I usually do at the end of every month, so when the day passes and there's no new money in her account, she calls me and asks me what the heck's happening. I told her I'm cutting her off after what she did. She's going to figure out how to make Dad's pension work because I was done with her and ready to go no contact. She tried to explain that she was just looking out for me and my marriage and she did not want me to go through such a bitter divorce at such a young age. Her excuses meant nothing to me at this point. I told her if she wanted money, she could ask Lisa since they were such good friends. A petty jab, yeah, but I didn't care. She said she had not heard anything from Lisa since the judge handed down his ruling. Well, too bad. She wasn't getting anything out of me, and I wished her good luck, and she gets mad at that. She called me ungrateful, a despicable son, and said none of her nephews would treat her sister that way. I told her that she should ask them for help since they were such good boys. She started pleading with me, and I guess since being mean did not seem to work, I was her only son and she could not bear to lose me too. But this was not about that. I told her she's not a good person. A good person would not have done what she did. My own mother encouraging my wife to cheat on me, I mean, come on. Wow, that crap hurt a lot, and I don't think she understood how much it actually hurt. I told her not to call me again, and I hung up, but that's not where this ends. The next day, my phone blows up with messages from family members on my mother's side, demanding to know what was going on. Apparently, my mom had been spreading nasty and false rumors about what happened, and she told them that I cut her off because she'd become a, quote, burden. I sent everyone who messaged or called the email thread, and now half of them are on my side and half are on my mom's side. I've been uninvited from the birthdays, weddings, and family barbecues, but I don't care. That side of my family is toxic, and I don't want to be around them anyways. The only reason I tolerated them was because of my mother. Now that I've gone no contact with her, I don't have to deal with them anymore. Okay guys, so this one took an interesting turn, and what I mean by that is the comment section. A lot of people are saying, OP, you went too far. Yeah, your mother might have given some really bad advice, basically encouraged cheating, but at the same time, she should have just not got into your business, but she is your mom. Cutting her off and not helping her financially while she has to survive on, well, hardly nothing, basically peanuts, is not very good. But there was also people that were saying, oh no, this woman got right into the middle of OP's relationship and basically encouraged OP's ex-wife to keep going. Just don't let him know. He'll never find out. So a lot of people see that as seriously deceitful, and at the end of the story, we see that OP decides, you know what? I'm going to cut contact with both of these people forever, and I'm not helping her out financially anymore. And we also saw how some of the family members don't agree with that. So my question to you guys is this. If you had to pick a side, would you pick the side that says OP should go ahead and fix his relationship with his mother, or do you think no, OP made the right choice by cutting everyone off and doing what's best for him. Guys, drop your comments down in the comment section. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's video. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito, and we cover stories every single day. We have cheating stories, inheritance dramas, mother-in-law dramas, which, by the way, are hands down my favorite, and we have had some wild mother-in-law stories. If you guys want to be part of these daily videos and support the channel at the same time, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!